We're so grateful that you're here. Some of you may not know much about the Oregon Historical Society, but our mission is to preserve our state's history and make it accessible to everyone in ways that advance knowledge and inspire curiosity about all the people, places, and events that have shaped Oregon. And of course, the projects that we're here to hear about tonight and learn about are some restaurants that are places where events and people have shaped our state's history. And so we're so grateful for the vision and the work of Apano in making this project happen. I'm going to introduce our speaker here in just a minute, but I wanted to say a couple of other things about the Oregon Historical Society, because we really encourage you to connect with us. We have some amazing exhibitions up right now. If you're interested in more Chinese Oregon history, our She Flies With Her Own Wings exhibit about aircrafts and flying in the 1930s includes some wonderful information about some women who were airplane pilots in the 1930s. You can check that out. We also have the Yasui Family, An American Story, which is an exhibition about an Oregon family that has been here since the early 20th century. And there's the story of that family truly does touch on many, many of the themes and events and questions and complications and triumphs that are central to the history of our nation as a whole. And so this exhibition will be up through the next summer of 2026. As folks may know, 2026 will be the semi-quincentennial anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. So we are thinking a lot about how Oregon history connects with national history and some of the questions and challenges and triumphs that have animated our entire nation's history. So I'll make two plugs for upcoming events that are relevant to that. One is on Saturday, September 27th. We will have a symposium right next door at the church. It's a symposium on immigration and civil rights, and the title of the symposium is All of Us. It's inspired by a quote that Minoru Yasui was fond of using: "What is done to the least of us shall be done to all of us." And so that symposium in the morning will be focusing on the history of the Alien Enemies Act, and scholars including Dan Tishner and Peggy Nagai will be speaking in the morning. And then the afternoon session will focus on what's commonly known as Oregon sanctuary law, and we'll have legal scholars Tina Ching and Faye Setzwaters and Danny Santos, who was instrumental in passing that policy in 1987. So that symposium is free, it's open to everyone. We hope you'll be able to join us for some or all of that day. We're asking folks to register, but if you don't get to it and you just remember and want to show up that day, please do. And then also next year, as part of our Hatfield Lecture Series, we are really thrilled that Michael Lowe accepted our invitation to come and speak on his book, Strangers in the Land, Exclusion, Belonging, and the Epic Story of the Chinese in America. So that lecture will take place on March 10th at the Schnitzer Auditorium. You can purchase tickets to see it in person. You can purchase tickets to see it virtually. Ticket sales are open now to Oregon Historical Society members, and they'll open to everyone within a couple of weeks. So we hope you can join us for that or any other programs. If you're not caught up with everything that OHS is doing, please do sign up for our e-digest. You can just go to ohs.org and sign up. It comes out once a week. You get all the great information. And I'll just make one final OHS plug, which is a thank you to the people of Multnomah County, who have now 3 times voted to enact a modest property tax levy that supports the Oregon Historical Society and 4 historical societies in East Multnomah County. Multnomah County residents, your museum admission is always prepaid because you pay those property taxes, and we appreciate that very much. So please come visit our museum anytime. We're really grateful for the work that Apano does in our community. All of the work, we're here to talk about just one portion of it tonight. But for folks who don't know, Apano unites Asians to build power, develop leaders, and advance equity through organizing, advocacy, community development, and cultural work. So thank you to Apano and everybody who supports the work that they do. Our community is much stronger for that work, and we're really excited to have the excuse and opportunity to show off some of that tonight. So Suenn Ho, our speaker this evening, is co-founder of Resolve Architecture and Planning and a longtime advocate for culturally rooted design. Her work spans historic interpretation, public architecture, and community-based planning. Ho's approach centers the lived experiences of immigrant and BIPOC communities with a focus on design as a tool for justice and memory. She served as the lead designer and curator for Behind the Walk, a digital archive honoring Chinese American restaurant legacies in Portland. Her past projects include the award-winning Garden of Surging Waves in Astoria and other cultural placemaking installations across Oregon. And I have to say, this is her second presentation in partnership with the Oregon Historical Society. She presented at our Oregon Migration Symposium at the University of Oregon in November 2016. And the part of what she presented there about the Garden of Surging Waves is published in an issue of the Oregon Historical Quarterly that the OHS publishes. And that's on our website. You can access that as well. I learned so much from her then, and I'm just really, really thrilled for the opportunity to have you back. Please join me in welcoming Suenn Ho.
All right, I'm very happy to see all of you here and some old friends that I haven't seen for decades, and some are new friends, and I hope I'm not going to disappoint you too much. One thing tonight, I want to keep an angle of, this is kind of like a behind the scene of the behind the walk. I'm hoping that you already have visited the website. If you haven't yet, I'm not going to go through every click and tell you how to go around the website. But I'm just going to give you an overview. So if you cannot read or see very clearly of what's up there, it's because it's by design. It wants to pique your interest, so you will go into the website to see it in front of your screen, up close and personal. I'm an urban designer, so why am I doing this? I don't know, but I was encouraged to go for RFP sent out by Apano, so that we can have a way to document the iconic restaurants in the Jade District. And I realized that there's a lot of things that we will need to cover, and I myself cannot actually do it all. And I want to make sure that I shout out to Choi Yi Wong, who's actually behind the camera right now. So if you don't want to be in her shots, you're going to avoid her, but she's excellent, and she's also our incredible graphic designer as well as website designer. Suenn Ho, editor-chief of Portland Chinese Times. There's a lot of archives that we really dug into, the deep kind of piles of newspaper, very organized, and we were able to take advantage of her knowledge. And of course, Oregon Historical Society, I have to shout out the librarians, reference librarians. They were like detectives. We discover a lot of things. We all look at it and say, whoa. It's really fun. Hours of discussion on what we discovered. And then there's Oregonian, and then the family members we also interview, especially Janet Lee and Gloria Wong. Both of them specifically help out with a lot of their knowledge base, and I couldn't keep texting them enough. And then the funding was from Mellon Foundation through their monument project. And so we're going to move forward with a little bit of why we do this work. So when you go to Apano's website, you will see about us, Meet Apano, and in there will be our work, and under our work is part of that list of things that they do. And this is where, behind the walk, when you open up that first page. What we would like to emphasize is there are a few of these orange boxes. Click them, and they are fun. They open up things that you start to drill in a lot. And then Choi is the one who designed the graphics, and then the beautiful kind of presentation capturing all the 6 restaurants. So, Jade District. Jade District is relatively new in comparison to Portland, Chinatown, which is north of Burnside. And I deliberately put down Old Chinatown, which is kind of our downtown. A lot of people don't know that there was an Old Chinatown south of Burnside. So this stack of slides are customized for you tonight, just to give you a better sense of the bearings of the context. If you look at Jade District here, there's a lot of these restaurants that we will be talking about. But without talking about Chinatown, we can't really talk about the Jade District. One reason is because there is a restaurant called Hung Fa Lo here. And Hung Fa Lo was in Chinatown. It's technically New Chinatown and Japantown, historic district. But our librarian and I were able to dig deeper, and we were able to find out that there was a Hung Fa Lo actually in the old Chinatown. So that was a lot of fun to discover that. And then we also deliberately not showing all the other iconic restaurants for brevity, because there are many stories to tell. There are many families who actually went into a lot of very endearing family businesses, and very few of them are still actually running. They no longer run by the same family, but a couple of shout out is the Pagoda, and then the Chin's Kitchen. And we know that's very dear to our late friend, Billie Jean Lee. And not deliberately trying to not put more dots in here is to focusing on the relationship of Jade District and downtown area, just to keep you kind of understanding the geographic relationship. This line here is now the 82nd Avenue. It was the boundary of City of Portland. So it was very hard to find information east of 82nd Avenue. We're trying to find a Sanborn map. They all stopped right there. And then you see there are restaurants right outside that city boundary, because the Chinese were not allowed to own properties. They have to find ways to create some of their entrepreneurial ideas into the business that they so believe in. So that's why there's also the outside of the boundary. Broadway was in the, I think, early 30s, 40s, was a cruise boulevard. When you have cars, you go cruising. And 82nd Street became the new cruising road. And that's also why a lot of advertisements will say, parking, we have parking. And so that's a little bit of that kind of cultural differences. This one gives you a sense of it, and again, you can read it in the website, you can see better, but this timeline is showing you some of the restaurants geographically, that they have a Chinese village, and then they open and they closed. Curiously, the location of Division and 82nd, there was the New Cafe. When New Cafe closed, there were a couple of generations of ownership called Hong Hong Fat 88, Chinese is Hong Fat. And then this Hong 88, Zui Wan Hin. And they were owned by different people, but same English names. So if you don't know that, you never knew that there's a backstory. And then Hung Fa Lo, which was there briefly. There's a dash line showing you that it was moved from the ownership change, and then it went from the New Chinatown to Jade District. And I was part of the co-leadership of the streetscape improvement plan in New Chinatown. In 2006, there's so much construction, city project, PBOT, and PDC. We went to extra miles to get beautification done. 18 months of this destructive construction, we almost lost all the businesses, and they never came back. So really a big lesson learned. Economic development should come first, and physical beautification will come when the business thrive. It's seldom really successful when you kick out all the little businesses and they couldn't survive during construction. Again, bear with me, lots of little details here, but this is an aerial view thanks to Historical Oregon Society's the historic photos from the archival collection. 1947, this is division, it jogs. And this is 82nd. This is where Legion, right now is actually a Canadian bank there. And then there was a driving range. And then here is actually currently the PCC, Southeast. And then you will see the wide street. This location is currently, it was a furniture store, and it was before was a produce store. And then this is the cruising opportunity for a lot of the young cars. And I encourage you to go into the website to check things out. A little shout out of this produce stand here, circa 1930. And Mr. Walter Lundberg had this business over here. And then in 35, they decided to run a Chinese restaurant called Canton Grill. In 1944, the Lewis family took over and the Chinese family came in. So it did not start with a Chinese owner. And then the third generation, Mr. Walter Lundberg, is sitting in front of us and really supporting this effort, and thank you for being here. Here's a similar view, but then it's a zoom in. So this was Long Fong. I don't know how many of you had the pleasure to actually patronize Long Fong restaurant. There was some old advertisement. James Brown was there performing at Long Fong. It's really cool. And then eventually it became Legion Restaurant. And then again, 82nd Avenue. This is the location where we had New Cafe, and then Hong 88, and then Hung Fa Lo. On the same spot. And then here's Canton Grill. And then of course it was the old produce stand that we just saw earlier on the slide. Wong's King, I'm sure a lot of people still remember Wong's King. And then Chinese Village, that direction. But look at this incredible density of businesses, especially Chinese restaurants. And then we see the furniture store turned into Apano's, their head office. And John and I, we were the Resolve Architecture, help Apano to design their new office on the ground floor as well as the community center. And, but pay attention to their location here. If you go there, there's a mural that has a lot of Japanese, old photos of Japanese and farmland. This establishment is called The Orchard. It was a Japanese family's orchard. And then Canton Grill. So there's a very close proximity of where Apano is and where Canton Grill is. And now you're starting to see why there is this so-called partnership, working relationship together. So Canton Grill, it went all the way back when there was a produce stand, and then when then it became the Canton Grill. I believe this is the Walter family's business, where grill still ends with the E, and then they have Chinese chefs, probably mostly cooks who can put something together, and then eventually this is also the photograph of what it was like when it was in this location in that first generation of the business. And then over the course of the business, through the decades, this is where it became with more decoration of Chinese paintings and decor. And then we have Fred Sr., Fred Louis Sr., and Fred Louis Jr., and third generation, Cindy Lewis. You'll hear a little story later with them. Hung Follow. When I learned that Hung Follow was already closed, again, I forgot to mention to you, none of these restaurants exist anymore. Some of them, they were known as Chop Suey House, and some of them really have this kind of older style of decor and along 82nd Street Avenue. And then when we look at Hung Follow before it became the Plaza development, which is right now right there at the corner, the owner who came here in 2005, remember I told you earlier, the construction, and we grand opened at 2006, and then 18 months of construction, Hung Follow just couldn't hang in there anymore. So the chef from the downtown Hung Follow offered to buy the business and came over here. But then the building owner said, there's no way you're going to take the iconic neon sign. So PTC put in some money, refurbished that. The building did not have the restaurant anymore. Of course, the Hung Follow restaurant was the second floor, and nowadays you need to ADA compliance and all that. No one really want to pay for all that upgrade. But Bruce Wong, he's the son of Wong On, and Wong On was the one who actually bought the business from Hung Follow when it was on 6th Avenue and Stark, south of Burnside. And it was a second floor business. And then this is Oregonian 1917 ad. This is the second ad after a couple of weeks later. At first it was just want waitress, Hung Follow. 2 weeks later, they want first class waitress. I don't know why, but looks like they did not like the first one. And then when it was in the New Chinatown, Japantown, in the 80s, there was a fire, very unfortunate. And then the grandson of Bruce's son, grandson of Wong On. And Bruce's son, they have many kids, but Bruce's son told me that, Scott Wong told me that Bruce, he's a forensic engineer. He said, I got my business to take care of. Can you take care of a refurbishment of after the fire? And so Scott did this renovation. He is now actually a very reputable doctor at OHSU. And he kept talking about how it looks like inside. We have absolutely no drawings. There's no way to know where things were. I went up there in 2004 to give out some flyers about the construction is coming. And I went up there, I remember a little bit of this, but it was very dark. And then I have a board member friend, Casey Mills, and he said, Hung Fa Lo, he's a lawyer, retired lawyer. He said, Hung Fa Lo, when we went there, it's like a rite of passage. And I have no idea what he meant. And then Troy and Rosalind were digging into the internet, and we found some old photos. Here's a Buddha. And then Scott Wong was talking about, yes, there's a Buddha. And then the Buddha was there during the first fire, and then the second fire, the fire troop came, put out the fire, and then the Buddha was gone. So you figure out what happened.
New Cathay. New Cathay is one that has a lot of stories, because it has a lot of, in the website we call it this as the circle of family. The problem is there's no more circles here. And then when we started, we had circles of this family, that family, and then this married to this one, and then they have kids, and they open this restaurant. There's so many restaurants based on this family. And I kept talking to Janet Lee. Said, did I get this wrong? It was so confusing. And finally, Apano said, can we just distill it? It's so confusing. Let's just show what we can digest on the website. So we have Canton Grill, and then I was telling you what family, and then how their partners also open up Hi-Hat, House of Louis, and then there's also Silk Hat, and then there are kids, and then there are New Cathay, and it was just everything. So enjoy when you open up the page. Here's the family photo of one of the, looks like it's daytime, probably a Sunday brunch that Janet always said, I went there on Sunday because that's when we're going to eat American food. So, and then we have Robert Louis, Senior, who you see the very iconic glass blocks back in the days. And then his son, Robert Louis Jr., we told him, come wear anything except green, because we'll have a green screen. He showed up with a green shirt, was so proud. He said, look, I got a green shirt. So we got some floating heads for a while. We have to find something else for him to wear. Chinese village. It's very iconic because it also has a neon sign that is as iconic as the Canton Grill. But what was never shown from the inside to the outside world, there was a very ornate decorative ceiling, woodwork, painting, lattice, and it's also one of the very early on introducing the bar, the lounge as the feature, which looks like that's where a lot of money comes in. So this is a circular shaped bar, and then you have the booths, and then you also are able to set it up as a banquet. The banquet style is usually the Chinese community banquet. And then the booths are usually for the Western family booths. And then very recently we also learned that there was a golf tournament that was started by Chinese village owner. And we have a little bit of a challenge just because the business actually had many owners, but then the owner that is able to sustain the business for the longest time was Mr. Chen Bangwo. Young man, very philanthropic, and then he actually was called basically single-handedly brought the village of Huayin from Toisan to Portland. And he was able to lend his opportunity to the people who are coming from China and then say, I'll train you, I'll teach you how to run a business, and now go and run your business. There are many, many Toisan ownership in the restaurant business in Portland, thanks to Mr. Chen. And then this person, Mr. So, he took over the restaurant, but then he was actually in town, and he ran the restaurant, had a lot of good memory, his family's there, but then he decided to move back to Asia, and he did not really want to talk too much about the history. This is the part that is very challenging because some of the stories, some of the owners did not really want to get too deep into it. It's something that they created, they saw it survive, thrive, and then as time changed, they took it on in a very personal way, thinking that we failed. We have to close the business. So that's something that we sometimes want to respect their privacy and did not want to put too much on the sad stories on the website. Legion is another incredible story. Before it was Long Phong, and then there's a group of Vietnamese, Chinese entrepreneurial business people, and they came, made an offer, bought Long Phong, and then we learned that later on they also bought the bowling alley. You remember it was a driving range, and maybe that's also why there was a golf tournament. But then there's also the bowling alley. And then the bowling alley was able to convert it into a banquet hall. So Legion at one time was offering the largest banquet hall along the West Coast. And it could seat 500 people and was large enough to actually host a lot of the festival events. And so there are booths and performance. And a lot of times I think we forgot that the community at that time did not really have much of location. Right now we will go to the convention center to have a lot of events. Back then we don't have anything like that. And then so the community want to get together, a lot of times is at the restaurant where there's a more space. And then Mr. Kwok had a very iconic representation of the Legion restaurant and with the events and all that. And you know Legion has been demolished because PCC made an offer. And then they said, okay, we'll sell it. And then business gone, he retired. And then we recently, if you drive down Division, you will see construction. there's a new construction that has lots of units, affordable housing, Apollo, and I'll just future partnering in developing affordable housing. Wong's Cave. How many of you actually have been to Wong's Cave? Yeah, we missed it. Wong's Cave, Jeff Wong, he is the only restaurant owner in this group who was professionally trained as five-star hotel chefs. He went to a proper school. Ever since he was a kid, he loves to cook. So he moved up and he became a five-star chef. He came to Portland in a very long story. Came to Portland, opening up 3 different healthy fast food. One in Selwood, one in Sandy, I think another one in Estacada. At one time, so he saw Legion was doing pretty well, having all these events. And then Chinatown, you can go to Chinatown, but there are no big states. We have small blocks, remember? And then so he went out to 82nd. He thought, maybe I should open something here. But the way he goes into this business is to change Chinese restaurants' reputation that is no longer compete with each other to see how cheap can it be and how much food we can pile on the plate. He said, Chinese food, if we do it right, you can have very, very high quality of dishes, and it's a haute cuisine. So he said, I have to charge more because the ingredients is expensive, labor is expensive. He trained his people. They go to Vancouver, BC, they go to Los Angeles to learn all the tricks, and they came back. And then I asked him one time, I said, when you have people who leave your business and then steal your recipe book and open up their own shop, what do you do? How do you deal with it? And he said, I take that as a challenge. I'll come up with new dishes. So very philosophical about it, and wonderful person. At first he did not want to engage with this project because he's the one especially said that I failed all my friends. COVID came and they were the first one with lost business. And PDC had some money to help them. It could. Running a business like this with big banquet hall is very expensive, very labor intensive. And so he said, I just can't hang in there anymore. And so they closed the business, and he really missed it. But I think some of the old friends kept in touch, and makes him pleased with the fact that he was not forgotten. This is a little bit of the clip.
This is hearsay, but I'm thinking when you do a job application, you're out of college, and your name is L-U-I-E, they just put you in the pile that they don't call you back. So at some point, you changed that one last letter so that it was more Americanized. I think it had to do with job application, getting employed, getting past that initial interview, see if anybody would hire him, because he was a college-educated chemist, but he couldn't get a job. I think other than the fact I asked you, is that the correct spelling? I don't think it actually caused me any awkward moments. You know, just that one short question, is that the correct spelling for your name? So, I can remember though, we were down in Lincoln City trying to rent a motel, and there was a sign vacancy. Park the car, walk up there, and by the time you got up there, they take one look at you. Well, we just rented it. You're trying to get a motel for the night. This is like in the 60s, 70s, 50 years ago. So
I somehow, not stupidly as a child, but it didn't occur to me for the longest time that somewhere in my history that my last name was originally Louie until I asked. Because obviously Louis is not a common Chinese, it isn't a Chinese last name. I grew up with it being that's what it was, and so that's just always what my last name has been. There was a brief period in my life where I was, because you could pronounce Louis, 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 which is also why I feel like the part he may have picked it, because it is like a common way to pronounce it. When I was growing up as a kid, and Portland still is very white, and so growing up, it was like essentially my sisters and my cousins and I were the Asian kids in school. Like that was it. So I didn't have an alternate frame of reference to give it additional thought to. As I got older, I did have a period of my life where I was going by using my last name as Louis, pronouncing it as Louis versus Louis. But then it felt strange because my entire family identifies themselves as Louis, so I went back to match.
To add a little bit, this project took a lot more time than we thought, because it's very tedious in terms of the process of gathering everything together. And we move on. We thought we were doing it as fast as possible. Fred Lewis Jr. passed away beginning of the year. And he couldn't see the finished product. But he was one of the sweetest person that we thought, so gentle, so wise. And young people, hurry up, do things faster. And then this is Robert Louis. No family relationship, but his last name is Louis.
It was a situation where my dad would go to work, and I showed it with my mom, and I would come to visit him. But he wasn't buying or doing it together. We had to take one bus. We lived in Northwest Portland, so we had to take one bus downtown, and take another bus to get to the second. And what was strange, as I recall, child was that the bus would drop you off, it was going out the road. You had to walk and maybe you would get to 82nd. So it wasn't finished on time. Between my mom and dad, we worked a lot. Restaurants were 7 days a week. So we kept doing not working, we kept preparation, we kept clean up. So it's long and hard hours.
Not going to show you all the clips. Not going to show you all the clips because you're going to be able to watch them and discover more and more. There's so many clips. I want you to kind of find your pace as you start looking at the website. The website is meant to be a teaser. We have cut away so many bits and pieces of stories, video, trying to keep a website that is manageable so it's not overwhelming. We're hoping that the experience that you go through looking at the website pique your interest in paying attention to community-based restaurants, elders who probably have a lot of stories that if you care to sit down and listen, there's a lot of real gems. And then the other reason why we do that is also we're hoping that this is a website that we put a seed in there, we can keep growing. There's so much we can do. And I've been always reminded by Apano, it's like, Suenn, stop it. Don't add anymore. Because we can just go into the rabbit hole. But if you are interested in it, upstairs there's an incredible archive of bits and pieces of good gems that you can go in and then find your stories, create your own storybook, add to it. We are not perfect. I'm sure we have mistakes. Also, it's oral history. People talk about the same situation, could have different versions. So there's no right or wrong, it's someone's recollection. And listen to it as you can see it evolve with different interpretations. And have fun with what's on the website. And what I have back there also is Brian Liu, my project manager from Apano, and he's actually in Washington, D.C. right now, talking to, at the Capitol Hill, talking to politicians out there, trying to find funding for the housing development that they would like to develop at Canton Grill. The Canton Grill site right now, you see, it's kind of like a staging ground, but then they are really looking hard to find funding to develop a project that will capture the legacy of the family, of the iconic restaurant, as well as a community place where the community can feel there's a sense of belonging. The whole mission is try to avoid gentrification and be able to keep the good, the fun, the tasty at place as we all age. And otherwise, I think this is all we have right now. And let's see, one more thing. The Mellon Foundation, not just funding the research, they also fund a group of young artists, the art crew at Apano. They create a lot of art activities to connect community through art. And they are in the process of developing the art monument idea that can be used as inspiration as it goes into the development design phase. And I see some art crew friends here. Really glad that all you can make it. It's a fun evening, beautiful day, and you choose to be here, and I hope I did not disappoint you. Sure, we have a little time.
We have time for a few questions. If there are any questions, I can bring the microphone. Yeah?
What surprised you the most in doing this project?
I was truly humbled. I realized, shame on you, Suenn. Why were you judging the chop suey houses? As a Chinese American, I grew up actually in Hong Kong. I was born here, but I grew up in Hong Kong, so I become quite a food snob, like everybody else. And when we're in America, when you have the old style chop suey houses, you always just like, that's not Chinese food. And I think that is so arrogant to think, if someone say, well, that's not authentic. What is authenticity? When families like that, back then especially, when you work with the ingredients you can get, you work with the tools. I don't even know where they got their woks back then, but when you put the ingredients together, you have to somehow recognize the palate of the neighborhood. People who come in. My mom was in a Chinese restaurant, a summer job when she was a student out in East Coast. And she said, yeah, two old Caucasian lady came in, and then I put down tea, and then they start pouring soy sauce in there and swirl it and then drink it. And I thought, well, what are you doing? They said, well, Chinese tea. So time has changed, right? Time has changed. And well, who are you to tell them, don't drink that? Because we don't drink that. But if they like it, at least maybe you say, well, we don't usually do that, but if you find it tasty, fine. So I think the cultural expression, so much of what we project out there as an individual has a lot to do with our background, our individual background. And then the way we were taught and brought up and experienced, we so frequently think that that's the way it is. We never question. Mom always do it that way. It has to be like that. But your mom does it differently. Is there wrong? Is there right? No. And shamefully, a lot of these restaurants, other than Wong's King and Legion, and maybe put down a flyer at Hangfalo, I've never been there before. They probably were gone by then, but also, I just never thought, I know where to find my Chinese food. Why am I going to a chop suey house? So if we can, that was what surprised me. And if we can just maybe look past that and just enjoy the moment of, oh, egg foo young. Enjoy it. Don't say, that's not authentic. No, just enjoy it. Someone put it together for you. Yeah.
Thanks, I really enjoyed your presentation. Are there any restaurants operating in the Portland area now that are successors to the old Chinese restaurants that you described, run by the same family, maybe different name, etc.? Or has everyone at the Lewises and the Wangs, have they all retired now?
It's a big question. I also have people like ask me, where is the chop suey house that we can go to? I don't know. Janet Lee, you have any tips there?
There are a few. There are a few out there. There are a few out there, but everyone has got sophisticated Chinese tastes now, so therefore they know what good Chinese food is. But there are a few chop suey houses that do have egg foo young, sub gum chow mein, some of those things that you might, and maybe some fried shrimp and barbecue pork too. So.
The other way to look at it is, if we look at why we have lost of these iconic restaurants, families tend to work really hard as the parents, grandparents. They want their children to move on. They don't want their children to do the same. So I don't know if you know about this or not. Sometimes you'll find Asian students in college towns. Sometimes their moms will be in town and open up a noodle shop during that 4 years. So the child will have home-cooked meal and make a few bucks. And then when the child is gone, move on, the restaurant's gone. It happens in Eugene. So it's a sign of endearing love from the parents to the children. For Wong's King, they have their children. They all were in the restaurant business, but running a banquet restaurant is very, very difficult. Very difficult. And right now, it seems like there's a surge of food carts. And you find lots of young entrepreneurial Asian foodies opening up something that they like. And then having a good time and gone fishing one day, and then the other day he or she making stuff, and one day I may just open up my own stinky tofu cart. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's a little bit hard to find. But I want to say, go and ask. Hear their stories. Don't go there when they're really busy and ask them just between lunch and dinner. Sit down, have a tea, get some dishes, and say, I just want to hear your stories. I think they will be delighted. Maybe one more?
Yeah, one more question. Okay. But thank you so much.
Thank you all.
For being here.